What if I told you some of the most powerful, outrageous cars in American history were never supposed to exist? Built in secret, banned by law, buried by the industry, but not before hitting the road and rewriting the rules. These machines weren't just fast. They were dangerous, forbidden, and unforgettable. If you've ever stared at a cracked hood and whispered, "How did this survive?" this story is for you. Welcome to the untold saga of 12 American cars that were banned but built. Buckle up, because once we begin, you'll want to witness every one of these legends to the very end. Number 1. 1969 Chevrolet Yenko Nova 427, the car even Chevy feared. At first glance, the 1969 Chevy Nova looked ordinary, compact, quiet, built for grocery runs. But Don Yenko saw something else, a blank canvas for raw speed. He wasn't just a dealer, he was a racer, a rebel, and a risk-taker. While GM held back, Yenko pushed forward. He had already made headlines with his modified Camaros and Chevelles, but now he wanted something lighter, faster, more dangerous. So what did he do? He took the Nova and gave it something GM refused to install. Not the 396. Not even the 400. No, he chose an engine so brutal it scared even Chevrolet. The L72, a 427 cubic inch, 425 horsepower big block V8 straight from the Corvette. This wasn't a car, it was a guided missile on skinny tires. Some called it the most dangerous muscle car ever built. Yenko handpicked his buyers. He'd test drive the car himself before delivery. He knew it wasn't for amateurs. One driver spun out at just 30 mil in their parking lot. Another ended up in a ditch the same week he bought it. Word spread, this wasn't a car you drove. It was a car you survived. Only 37 Yenko Novas were ever built. Insurance companies hated them. Chevy never officially approved them. Today they sit behind ropes at auctions, treated like relics of a wilder time. But if you ever see one in person, don't just admire the badge. Know this, you're not looking at a car, you're looking at a warning label on wheels. Number 2. 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona, the wing that broke NASCAR. It didn't just look fast. It looked like it cheated the wind. The 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona was wild, a massive nose cone, a 2-foot-high wing, and a shape that seemed more aircraft than automobile. Built purely to dominate NASCAR. It wasn't just a muscle car, it was a missile with license plates, and dominate it did. In 1970, Buddy Baker piloted the Daytona past 200 mil Paris at Talladega, becoming the first driver to break that barrier in a stock car. He later said the Daytona felt like it was glued to the track. Others, they weren't sure it belonged on it. NASCAR didn't laugh. They changed the rules. Suddenly, the car that had lapped legends was outlawed. Not because it broke the rules, but because it broke the sport. They banned aero cars with engines over 305 cubic inches. Just like that, the Daytona's wings were clipped. And here's the tragedy. Dodge had to build street versions to meet NASCAR's homologation rules. Over 500 were made, but dealers couldn't sell them. Imagine walking into a dealership and seeing a $4,000 car with a 2-foot wing and walking out. Some wings were removed. Some cars were junked. People laughed. Until history proved Dodge right. Today, the Daytona is a 6-figure icon. But more than that, it's proof that sometimes performance is too much for the system. Because every time that tall wing slices through the air again, it reminds us, some legends weren't meant to last. They were built to be banned. Number 3. 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda Convertible, the last roar of a dying breed. In 1971, muscle cars were beginning to fade. Insurance rates were rising. Emissions laws were tightening. And then Plymouth did something insane. They built a convertible with a 1426 Hemi under the hood. It was outrageous. A fire-breathing, pavement-ripping monster with no roof to hide the sound. The 1971 Hemi Cuda Convertible wasn't just fast, it was defiant. Plymouth didn't make it to impress the suits. They made it as a final middle finger to the era that was ending. Only 11 were ever made. Not because it failed, but because barely anyone dared to order one. This wasn't just expensive, it was intimidating. Some say only racers, collectors, or factory insiders knew how special this car truly was. Others didn't even realize you could option one like this. Dealers didn't push it. Insurance companies wanted nothing to do with it. But for the lucky few, imagine rolling into a gas station in 1971, top down, the Hemi rumbling behind you. People stared. Some smiled, others shook their heads like you were crazy. Maybe you were. Driving it was wild, living with it was wilder. It drank fuel like water, it shook at idle, it roared like war when unleashed, and every second behind the wheel reminded you you were holding on to something extinct. This wasn't a car for the showroom, or even for survival. It was Detroit's last act of rebellion, roaring into the storm with the top down, and when the storm cleared, only 11 were left standing. Number 4. 1970 Ford Torino King Cobra. The bullet that never left the barrel. Picture this. A forgotten wind tunnel, silent for decades. A dusty sheet is pulled back, and there it is. Low, wide, alien. The Ford King Cobra wasn't just a car. It was a weapon built for a war that ended before it began. By 1969, Dodge's Daytona and Plymouth Superbird were tearing through NASCAR with their wind-cheating designs. Ford was losing badly. So engineers got to work, secretly crafting a machine that would strike back. The King Cobra had a long, pointed nose, hidden headlamps, and a belly pan as smooth as a fighter jet's. Under the hood, a prototype Boss 429, raw, hungry, and built to dominate. Only 3 were ever made for wind tunnel testing and homologation. They never raced. NASCAR changed the rules before the King Cobra could touch the track. Some say Ford chickened out. Others say politics and emissions killed it. But whatever the truth, this car was silenced before its roar could echo. One Ford engineer later said, "We built a monster the world never got to fear." Rivals called it NASA on wheels, and when you dropped into its cockpit, you didn't feel like you were in a car. You felt like a test pilot. The hood stretched out like a missile. The windshield sat so low you aimed it, not drove it. The King Cobra wasn't buried because it failed. It was buried because it was too good. Too soon. And sometimes, the most dangerous weapons are the ones that never get fired. Number 5. 1963 Chrysler Turbine Car. The future we were forced to forget. She wore white gloves as she guided it through downtown. The engine didn't rumble, it whined like a jet preparing for takeoff. Children stopped mid-step. It looked like a spaceship. It sounded like tomorrow. And for a brief moment, it was. The Chrysler Turbine Car wasn't a prototype. It was a promise. Sleek bronze body. Afterburner tail lights. No pistons. No spark plugs. Just 60 moving parts. And a turbine that could run on anything from diesel to tequila. Chrysler built 55 of them and handed them to everyday Americans for testing. Housewives, soldiers, school teachers. One woman said, "It sounds like my blender. If my blender could fly." People were mesmerized. Drive-ins fell silent when it pulled in. Children stared at it like it was from the moon. Drivers didn't start the turbine car. They initiated it, and wherever it went, the future seemed to follow. But behind the scenes, pressure mounted. The turbine was too expensive, emissions were too unpredictable, and the oil crisis was beginning to whisper. So Chrysler did the unthinkable. They crushed them. One by one, these bronze beauties were forklifted into scrapyards, their turbine songs replaced by shrieks of metal. A Chrysler exec later admitted, "We debated saving them, but the orders came down. Kill the program. Kill the car." Only 9 survived. Jay Leno owns one. A few museums keep others alive. But to this day people ask, what if? What if we had embraced the whisper instead of the roar? Because for a moment in the jet age, Chrysler didn't build a car. They built tomorrow and let average Americans drive it. And then, we crushed it. Number 6. 1971 Chevrolet Vega Cosworth prototype. The scalpel. They never used. A silver-bodied coupe rests under a single spotlight. Dust coats the floor. A wrench drops, echoing through the silent shop. On the valve cover, 5 letters shimmer like a forgotten promise. COSWORTH. In the early 70s, GM had a problem. Japanese compacts were efficient, reliable, and winning hearts. The Vega was meant to fight back. But what if it could do more than compete? What if it could lead? Cosworth Engineering stepped in with something radical. A 1.9-liter aluminum block 4-cylinder, twin-cam head, forged internals, 180 horses, and a red line above 7,000 RPM. It didn't purr, it barked. A test driver once said, "We had a scalpel." But GM reached for a hammer. Inside the prototype, gold dash trim glinted like jewelry. A driver gripped the wheel, tapped the throttle, and the cam-tuned growl made the shop pause. Even the janitor stopped to listen. But politics and emissions strangled the dream. What could have screamed through corners like a Ducati got muted into the 1975 production version, 110 horsepower, choked down, softened, dulled. One GM engineer admitted, "This thing revved like a race bike, but they'd never let us build it." The prototype disappeared. Just memos, test cars, silence. Today, the 1971 Cosworth Vega isn't remembered for what it did. It's mourned for what it almost became. Not because it failed, but because the world wasn't ready to listen. Number 7. 1987. Buick GNX. The car Detroit tried to hide. No soundtrack, no chrome. Just the low rhythmic thrum of a turbocharged V6. Then TSS, a wastegate exhales, and the blacked-out Buick GNX launches like a ghost with a grudge. In 1987, muscle was supposed to be dead. The V8s were neutered, Detroit had surrendered, and Buick built golf course cars. But this was a middle finger on four wheels. A joint project with McLaren Performance Technologies. The GNX was the result of engineers gone rogue. Buick claimed 276 horsepower, but independent dynos showed 300 plus. It didn't explode, it detonated. The rear squatted, the front lifted, and Corvettes trembled. Car and Driver called it the quickest American car of its time. Road and Track said it made others look overstyled and underpowered. Inside GM, people panicked. This Buick was too fast, too powerful, too rebellious. One insider admitted, "This car was never supposed to exist. We built it anyway." So they ended it. Only 547 were made. But the legend didn't fade. It grew. What began as a one-year outlaw became a six-figure ghost. GNXs now cross auction blocks for over 200, and when one fires up, crowds go silent. It doesn't look flashy, it doesn't brag, but when it moves, it makes everything else feel like it's standing still. This isn't just a Buick. It's a warning. Power never truly dies. It just waits, in the dark. Number 8. 1973, AMC Gremlin 4012XR. The little monster with a big punch. What if you took the weirdest-looking economy car on the market and stuffed it with a 401 cubic inch V8? That's exactly what Randall AMC did in 1973, and the result was a car so absurd, so raw, so unexpectedly fast, it became legend. The AMC Gremlin was never meant to be a performance icon. It was stubby, cheap, designed to beat the Pinto, not Porsches. But a few madmen at Randall AMC in Arizona saw something different. With AMC's blessing, they began shoehorning in the company's biggest engine, the 6.6L 401 V8, into this tiny, unassuming shell. The result? A barely contained riot on four wheels. It wasn't refined, it wasn't elegant, but it was fast, smoking tires, neck-snapping torque. Green lights became launch pads. Quarter miles were dusted before the driver even touched third. The best part? It still looked like a Gremlin. Just a few badges and a sinister rumble hinted at the madness beneath. It was the ultimate sleeper. One GM exec allegedly said, "It was like being sucker-punched by a bowling ball in a sock." Only a few hundred were ever built, true Randall originals. Many were later stripped or debadged, which means some might still be hiding in plain sight, misidentified, forgotten, waiting in barns and backyards. Today, original Randall-built 401 XRs are cherished by collectors. They're rare, they're weird, and they remind us that rebellion doesn't always come in a muscle car body. Sometimes, it comes wrapped in a grin, shaped like a shoe. The 401 XR wasn't just a car. It was AMC saying, "Let's do it just to see what happens." And what happened was beautiful chaos. Number 9. 1957 Cadillac Eldorado Briam. American XS perfected. Step back into 1957. Elvis ruled the charts. Jetliners touched the skies, and on showroom floors Cadillac unveiled something so extravagant it made even Rolls-Royce glance sideways. The Eldorado Briam wasn't just a car, it was America's declaration that luxury didn't belong to Europe alone. From its brushed stainless steel roof to the precision-aligned body panels, the Briam whispered opulence. Rear suicide doors, once favored in chauffeur-driven limousines, hinted at its elite clientele, diplomats, movie stars, and CEOs. Jetliners touched the skies, and on showroom floors Cadillac unveiled something so extravagant it made even Rolls-Royce glance sideways. The Eldorado Briam wasn't just a car, it was America's declaration that luxury didn't belong to Europe alone. From its brushed stainless steel roof to the precision-aligned body panels, the Brupham whispered opulence. Rear suicide doors, once favored in chauffeur-driven limousines, hinted at its elite clientele, diplomats, movie stars, and CEOs. Inside, perfume atomizers, magnetic drinking glasses, and a memory seat system graced the cabin. The six-way power front seats and deep contoured rears weren't just comfortable, they were architectural. It debuted quad headlights before they were even legal in every state, daring the rest of the industry to catch up. And under the hood, a 365 Ci V8 pushing 325 horsepower, paired with air suspension so advanced, it often confused the mechanics of the time. Priced around $13,000 on par with a Rolls-Royce, it wasn't just Cadillac's halo car, it was a shot at the throne. Adjusted for inflation, it would top $140,000 today. Cadillac refined the Braham in '58, but the spark dimmed. Then in 1959-60, production moved to Pininfarina in Italy, making those final Brahms rare, elegant exotics. Yet something was lost in translation. The magic of Detroit's hand-built audacity was never quite recaptured. Was it the most futuristic American car ever made? Arguably. But what's certain is this. The Bruzum wasn't designed for traffic lights. It was crafted for red carpets, white gloves, and gold-plated dreams. Today, when one glides across an auction block, you don't just hear bidding paddles, you hear whispers of a time when America aimed not to impress, but to outshine the world. Number 10. 1975 Chevrolet Monza 5.8, firepower in a smog war. In a decade when horsepower was dying and emissions were king, the 1975 Chevrolet Monza 5.8 quietly became one of the last sparks of defiance. Originally meant to house a GM rotary engine that never materialized, the Monza was re-engineered on the fly to accept a small block V8, complete with a repositioned steering shaft just to make it fit. California's stricter emissions laws ironically led to the use of a detuned 5.7L 350 V8 rated at just 125 HP, while the rest of the country got a 305 with around 140 HP. It wasn't a traditional muscle car, it was a compact performance coupe trying to roar in a whispering era. Its sloped nose, wide grille, and fastback silhouette gave it a sleek, almost European look. Some enthusiasts even drew comparisons to Ferrari's 365 GTC4, a resemblance GM never confirmed, but fans still whisper about. Though it shared roots with the ill-fated Vega, the Monza V8 was a different beast entirely. The 350 V8 lasted just 1 year, making it one of the rarest smog-era GM builds. Later trims like the Spider and Mirage carried the torch with stripes and spoilers, but none matched the forbidden punch of the original 35-0. No pop-up lights, no headlines, but those who knew, knew. The Monza didn't scream rebellion, it smuggled it under the hood. And today, if you find one hiding in a dusty garage, don't laugh at its badge. Tip your hat, because in 1975, this little coupe dared to bring fire to a fight already lost. Number 11, 1990 Corvette ZR1 Active Handling Mule. The ghost that predicted the future. It looked like a regular C4 Corvette, maybe just another ZR1 test car. But hidden beneath its skin was something far ahead of its time, a system that could sense a loss of control before it even happened. In 1990, GM quietly built this prototype, an experimental ZR1 equipped with gyroscopic sensors, yaw detection, and selective braking. No torque vectoring, no throttle by wire, but it could apply precise brake pressure to individual wheels, simulating the effect of torque distribution and giving the car an almost psychic ability to stay planted. Engineers believed it could rival, and in some conditions, even outmaneuver, Europe's finest. It didn't explode onto the scene, it whispered through test tracks. By the time Porsche and BMW were refining their own systems in the late 90s, GM had already run the laps. Silently. Decades ahead. These were internal mules, never sold, never officially documented. Most were likely scrapped or quietly retired. No VINs, no registry, just faded photos, second-hand whispers, and one surviving car, still buried in GM's archives. The system wouldn't show up in a production Corvette until years later, refined, renamed, and far less wild. But back then, this ZR1 was something else. A ghost of what cars could become. In the age before traction control was standard, before drift mode was a showroom gimmick, GM was already staring into the future and building it behind closed doors. Number 12, 2006, Dodge Charger Super B. the loudest comeback of a silent era. In a world that had gone quiet, hybrids humming and regulations tightening, Dodge did something unthinkable. They brought the Super Bee back. Not as a memory, not as a tribute, but as a full-blown tire-shredding, 425 horsepower roar from the past. It was 2006. And out of nowhere, a bright yellow Charger stormed onto the streets with a 6.1-liter Hemi, forged internals, a bold black stripe, and an exhaust note that sounded like rebellion. The quarter mile? A legit low 13 seconds, fast enough to earn respect, loud enough to break the silence. But there was a catch. The car didn't meet emissions rules for California and several other CARB states. It wasn't banned, but it was restricted. In the places where the hybrid movement had taken hold, the Super Bee couldn't even be ordered. In the eyes of some, that made it even more forbidden. Only 1,000 units were built in 2006, making it the rarest of all modern Super Bees. Dodge wasn't just reviving a name, they were reviving an attitude. One that said, we don't care what's trending. This is what power feels like. Steering feel, average. Weight, over 4,100 pounds. But no one cared. Because when you mashed the throttle, that Hemi launched you like a freight train made of thunder. This wasn't finesse. It was controlled brutality. The 2006 Super Bee was the first US revival in over 35 years, and it didn't whisper its return. It screamed it. One last gasp of raw muscle before regulations, trends, and time tried to shut the garage door for good. And Dodge, they didn't ask for permission, they just built it. These weren't just cars. They were forbidden legends, built in defiance, buried by time. But today, their stories roar again. If you felt that rumble in your chest, don't let it fade. Like the video, share the legend, and hit subscribe to join Regal Rides, where forgotten horsepower finds new life.